The shuttle was falling apart around him. Park Do-hoon gripped the emergency handles as fire and smoke filled the small cabin. Warning lights flashed red. The computer voice kept repeating the same words over and over. Impact. In 30 seconds. Impact. In 30 seconds. He had been a survey officer for 6 years. He had seen storms on gas giants. He had walked on moons, made entirely of ice. But he had never crashed before. The ground came up fast. Too fast. Do-hoon closed his eyes and thought of home. He thought of his mother's cooking. He thought of the small apartment in Seoul where he grew up. He thought of all the things he never got to say. Then the world turned to noise and pain and darkness. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying in purple grass. The sky above him was orange, filled with 3 small suns. His body hurt everywhere, but he could move his arms and legs. Nothing was broken. He sat up slowly and looked around. The shuttle was 20 meters away, burning and destroyed. Black smoke rose into the alien sky. All his equipment was inside that fire. His communication device, his emergency beacon, his food and water. Everything was gone. Do-hoon stood up and took a deep breath. The air was strange, but he could breathe it. His suit had already tested the atmosphere during the descent. Safe for humans. That was the only good news. He knew where he was, planet Velar 4, a frontier world at the edge of explored space. His mission had been simple: fly past, take readings, and continue to the next system. But something had gone wrong with the engine. Something had exploded. Now he was stuck on a planet that was marked in every database with the same warning: primitive civilization. No contact allowed. The Galactic Survey Corps had strict rules about planets like this. The people here were not ready to meet humans. They had not developed space travel. They did not know that other worlds existed. Contact could damage their society in ways that could not be fixed. Do-hoon was supposed to stay hidden. Find high ground. Send a signal somehow. Wait for rescue. He started walking toward the hills in the distance. The forest around him was strange and beautiful. The trees had silver bark and leaves that glowed faintly blue. Small creatures watched him from the branches, their many eyes following his movement. He walked for hours. His legs grew tired. His throat grew dry. But he kept moving. Then he heard the scream. It was high and sharp. A child's scream. The sound of pure terror. Do-hoon stopped walking. His training told him to ignore it. Do not interfere. Do not make contact. Let the local people handle their own problems. But the scream came again. Closer this time. And then he heard other sounds. Heavy footsteps. Angry voices. The crack of branches breaking. Someone was being chased. Do-hoon moved before he could think. He ran toward the sounds, pushing through the thick bushes and jumping over fallen logs. His heart was beating fast. His training was screaming at him to stop, to turn back, to hide. He did not stop. He reached a small clearing and saw everything at once. There was a child running through the forest. A little girl, maybe 7 years old. But she was not human. Her skin was pale, silver, almost white. Her hair was long and dark purple. Her eyes were large and amber-colored, like a cat's eyes. She wore torn clothes that looked expensive, covered in dirt and blood. Behind her were 5 hunters. They were the same species as the girl, but larger and older. Their faces were painted with black ash. They carried bows and arrows. They moved through the forest like predators, fast and silent. The girl was crying as she ran. She kept looking back at the hunters. She was so scared that she did not see the route in front of her. She tripped and fell hard. Her small body hit the ground, and she cried out in pain. The hunters slowed down. They knew she could not escape now. They raised their bows. Their arrows were black and wet with something that smelled wrong. Poison. The girl tried to get up, but her ankle was hurt. She crawled backward, her amber eyes wide with fear. She raised her small hands as if that could stop the arrows. One of the hunters said something in a language Do-hun did not understand. The words sounded like a death sentence. Do-hun's body moved on its own. He burst out of the bushes and ran into the clearing. The hunters saw him and froze. Their eyes went wide with shock and fear. They had never seen anything like him before. His round eyes, his brown skin, his strange clothes. To them, he was a monster from a nightmare. But Do-hun did not care what they thought. He only cared about one thing. He ran to the child and dropped to his knees in front of her. He put his body between her and the hunters. He spread his arms wide, making himself as big as possible. The little girl stared up at him. She was shaking. She did not understand what he was or why he was helping her. She had never seen a human before. His face was so different from her people. His eyes were so small and dark, but she saw something in those eyes. Something soft, something kind. Do-hun looked down at her and tried to smile. He knew she could not understand his words, but he spoke anyway. "It is okay," he said softly. "I will not let them hurt you. I promise." The hunters recovered from their shock. They started shouting at each other. Do-hun could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. They were deciding what to do. They were deciding if this strange creature was a threat. One of them raised his bow and pointed it at Do-hun. Do-hun did not move. He stayed on his knees, his body covering the child. His heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. He was scared. He was so scared. But he did not run. The girl behind him was crying softly. She grabbed the back of his shirt with her small hands. She held on tight, like he was the only safe thing in the world. Maybe he was. The lead hunter stepped forward. His face was hard and cold. He looked at Do-hun with hatred and curiosity mixed together. He said something. A question, maybe. Do-hun shook his head slowly. He pointed at the girl behind him, then held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "She is just a child," he said. "Please. She is just a child." The hunter did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. He did not care. He raised his bow and pulled back the arrow. The black poison dripped from the tip. Do-hun took a deep breath. He turned around and wrapped his body around the little girl. He held her tight against his chest and covered her with his arms and back. He made himself into a shield. The girl looked up at his face. She was so close, she could see the fear in his eyes. But she also saw something else. Something she would remember for the rest of her life. He was not running. He was not leaving her. This stranger, this alien, this creature from another world, was going to die for her. And he was smiling. "Close your eyes," he whispered. "Do not look. It will be okay." She did not understand the words, but she understood his voice. Soft and warm and kind. She closed her eyes, and then the arrows flew. The first arrow hit his shoulder. The pain was sharp and hot, like a knife made of fire. Do-hun gasped, but he did not scream. He kept his body wrapped around the child. He kept his arms tight around her small frame. The second arrow hit his back, just below his left shoulder blade. This one went deeper. He felt it scrape against bone. Still, he did not move. Still, he did not let go. The third arrow. The fourth. The fifth. Each one was a new world of pain. Each one made his body shake and tremble. But he held on. He held on to the little girl like she was the most precious thing in the universe. Because to him, right now, she was. The sixth arrow hit his lower back. The seventh hit his right shoulder from behind. 7 arrows total. 7 pieces of poisoned metal buried in his flesh. The hunters lowered their bows. They waited for the strange creature to fall. Do-hun's body was screaming at him. His muscles were on fire. He could feel the poison starting to work, cold and wrong, spreading through his blood. His vision was getting blurry at the edges, but he was still alive. He was still holding her. The little girl was shaking beneath him. She could feel the wetness on her back. She could feel his blood soaking through her torn clothes. She did not understand why this stranger was bleeding. She did not understand why he was hurting. But she understood that he was dying for her. "No," she whispered in her own language. "No, no, no." She tried to push him away, tried to see the damage, tried to help. But Do-hun held her tighter. He would not let her look. He would not let her see the arrows in his back. "Shh," he said softly. His voice was weak now. "It is okay. Keep your eyes closed. Help is coming." She did not understand his words. But his voice was so gentle, so calm, like her mother's voice when she had nightmares. The hunters started walking toward them. Their boots made heavy sounds on the forest floor. They wanted to finish the job. The poison would kill him slowly. But they wanted to make sure. The lead hunter reached down and grabbed Do-hun's hair. Do-hun looked up at the orange sky. He thought about his life. He thought about all the places he had seen, all the stars he had visited. He thought about Earth, so far away now. He wondered if anyone would ever know what happened to him. Then, in the distance, a horn sounded. It was loud and deep, like thunder rolling across the hills. Another horn answered it. Then another. Then another. The hunters froze. Their faces went pale with fear. The lead hunter released Do-hun's hair. He looked at the other hunters and said something sharp and urgent. They all turned and ran into the forest, disappearing into the shadows like ghosts. Do-hun fell forward. He barely had the strength to catch himself before he crushed the little girl beneath him. He rolled to the side and lay on his back, staring up at the sky. The arrows in his back pushed deeper when he lay down. The pain was beyond anything he had ever felt. But at least the child was safe. At least she was not hurt. The little girl sat up and looked at him. Her amber eyes were full of tears. She saw the arrows sticking out of his body. She saw the red blood spreading across the purple grass. She had never seen red blood before. Her people's blood was silver, like their skin. This strange creature bled in colors she had only seen in flowers and sunset skies. "Why?" she asked him in her language. Her voice was broken with crying. "Why did you do that?" Do-hun could not understand her words. But he saw her tears. He saw her confusion. He reached up with a shaking hand and touched her cheek softly. "You are okay," he said. He smiled, even though it hurt. "That is all that matters." The girl grabbed his hand with both of hers. She held it tight against her face. His hand was so warm. His skin was so different from hers. "Please," she begged. "Please do not die. Please." Do-hun's vision was getting darker. The poison was working fast now. He could feel it in his chest, cold and heavy, slowing his heart. He was so tired. He closed his eyes. The horns grew louder. The sound of many feet running through the forest. Voices shouting. Orders being given. The royal guard had finally found their princess. They burst into the clearing with weapons drawn, ready for battle. But they found something they did not expect. They found their young princess, the only daughter of the queen, kneeling over a strange creature covered in arrows. The captain of the guard, a tall warrior named Kale, stepped forward slowly. He had served the royal family for 30 years. He had seen many strange things, but he had never seen anything like this. "Princess Lyra," he said softly, "step away from that creature. We do not know what it is." But Lyra did not move. She held the stranger's hand tighter and shook her head. "He saved me," she said. Her voice was stronger now, despite her tears. "The Shadow Clan was going to kill me. They shot their arrows. He used his body to protect me." Kale looked at the creature more closely. He saw the arrows. He counted them. 7 arrows, all tipped with nightbane poison. The most deadly poison known to their people. No one survived nightbane. Not even the strongest warriors. But this creature was still breathing. Barely. "He is not one of us," Kale said slowly. "He is not from this world." Lyra looked up at him with fierce eyes. I do not care where he is from. He saved my life. We have to help him. Kale looked at his guards. They were all confused and scared. None of them knew what to do. Their laws said nothing about creatures from other worlds. Their healers had never treated anything but their own people. But their princess was crying, and the creature at her feet had taken 7 arrows meant for her. Some debts could not be ignored. Pick him up, Kale ordered. Carefully. Do not remove the arrows. Take him back to the capital. Find the best healers. Capital. The guards moved quickly. They lifted Do-hun's body as gently as they could. He groaned in pain, but did not wake up. Lyra walked beside him the whole way. She never let go of his hand. She kept talking to him, even though she knew he could not hear her. You are going to be okay, she kept saying. I will not let you die. I promise. I promise. The journey back to the capital took several hours. The guards moved as fast as they could without hurting the strange creature more. Lyra refused to ride in the royal carriage. She insisted on walking beside him. By the time they reached the city, word had already spread. The streets were filled with people wanting to see the alien who had saved their princess. They stared in wonder and fear at Do-hun's strange body, his round face, his small eyes, his brown skin. Some called him a monster, some called him a demon, but Lyra stood tall and held his hand where everyone could see. He is not a monster, she said loudly. He is a hero. The healers were waiting at the medical sanctuary. They had never treated anything like this before. They did not know how his body worked. They did not know how to fight the poison in his blood, but they tried. They removed the arrows one by one. They cleaned the wounds. They gave him medicines that helped their own people. Nothing worked. The poison was spreading. His heart was slowing down. His breathing was getting weaker with each passing hour. The head healer, an old woman with white hair, came to speak with Kale. We cannot save him, she said sadly. The Nightbane has gone too deep. His body is too different from ours. Even if he were one of us, 7 arrows would be too many. Kale nodded slowly. He had expected this. But still, it hurt to hear. How long does he have? He asked. Days. Maybe a week. The poison will destroy him slowly. Kale looked through the window at the room where Do-hun lay. Little Lyra was sitting beside his bed, still holding his hand. She had not eaten. She had not slept. There is another option, the healer said quietly. Stasis. We could put him in the crystal sleep. It would stop the poison from spreading. It would freeze him. In time. For how long? Until we find a cure. It could be years. It could be decades. She paused. It could be forever. Jarn. Kale closed his eyes. This was not his decision to make. The creature was a stranger. He had no family here. No one to speak for him, except for a 7-year-old princess who refused to let go of his hand. I will tell her, Kale said. She deserves to know the choice. He walked into the room and knelt beside Lyra. She looked at him with red, tired eyes. He is not getting better. Is he? She asked. No, princess, he is not. Lyra's face crumbled. But she did not cry. She had cried all her tears already. There is another way, Kale said gently. We can put him to sleep. A special sleep that will keep him alive until we find a way to save him. How long will he sleep? We do not know. It could be a very long time. Lyra looked down at the stranger's face. He looked peaceful now, like he was just sleeping. Like he would wake up any moment and smile at her again. She made a decision that would shape the rest of her life. Do it, she said. Put him to sleep, and I will find a way to wake him up. Princess, it could take many years. You might be an old woman before. I do not care, Lyra said fiercely. He did not care about his own life when he saved me. I will not care about my time when I save him. Kale looked at the little girl who would one day be queen. He saw the fire in her eyes, the steel in her voice, and he knew she meant every word. The stasis chamber was made of blue crystal. It stood in the center of the Royal Medical Sanctuary, surrounded by machines that hummed with soft energy. The healers had worked through the night to prepare it. Do-hun lay on a white bed, his eyes closed, his chest barely moving. The poison was still spreading inside him. They could see it now. Dark lines under his brown skin, reaching toward his heart. He had hours left. Maybe less. Lyra stood beside him, holding his hand. She had not left his side for 2 days. The queen, her mother, had tried to make her eat. The guards had tried to make her sleep. She refused everything. "It is time, princess," the head healer said gently. Lyra nodded slowly. She looked down at the stranger's face. She did not know his name. She did not know where he came from. She did not know why he had saved her. But she knew one thing. She knew that she owed him her life, and she would spend the rest of her years paying that debt. "Can he hear me?" she asked. "Perhaps. We do not know. His mind is somewhere between sleep and wake." Lyra leaned close to his ear. She spoke softly, in words meant only for him. "I do not know if you can understand me. I do not know if you will ever wake up. But I want you to know something." She took a deep breath. "You saved me. A stranger. A child. You did not know who I was. You did not know if I was good or bad, important or not. You just saw someone who needed help. And you gave everything." Tears fell from her eyes onto his cheek. "My people have a word for someone like you. We call them sun heart. It means someone whose heart is so bright that it warms everyone around them. You have a sun heart." She squeezed his hand tighter. "I am going to find a way to save you. I do not care how long it takes. I do not care what I have to do. When you wake up, I will be there. I promise." She leaned down and pressed her forehead against his, a gesture of deepest respect among her people. "Wait for me," she whispered. "I will bring you home." Then she stepped back and nodded to the healers. They lifted Do-hun's body carefully and placed him inside the crystal chamber. The blue walls began to glow. Cold mist filled the space around him. The machines hummed louder. Slowly, the crystal started to freeze. Ice formed on the surface. Beautiful patterns like winter flowers. Do-hun's body grew still. His heart slowed down. His breathing stopped. But he did not die. He was suspended, frozen in a single moment. The poison could not spread anymore. Time could not touch him anymore. He was waiting. Lyra pressed her small hand against the crystal wall. Through the ice, she could still see his face. Peaceful. Calm. Like he was just sleeping. "I will come back," she said. "Every day. I will tell you everything that happens. You will not miss anything." And she kept her promise. For the next 50 years, Lyra visited the crystal chamber every single day. When she was a child, she would sit beside it and tell him about her lessons. When she was a young woman, she would tell him about her dreams. When she became queen, she would tell him about her kingdom. But those were later times. First, there were hard years ahead. The war with the Shadow Clan lasted for 5 more years, after that day in the forest. Lyra learned why they had been trying to kill her. Her family was the last of the royal bloodline. If she died, there would be no heir. The Shadow Clan wanted to destroy the monarchy and take control. They failed. Kale led the royal army to victory. The Shadow Clan was defeated and scattered, but peace did not bring healing. Lyra's father had died in the war. Her mother grew sick with grief and never recovered. She died when Lyra was 15. Suddenly, Lyra was alone. A 15-year-old girl, with a crown too heavy for her head and a kingdom full of problems. Her advisors told her what to do. Get married. Have children. Secure the bloodline. That was all that mattered. That was all queens were supposed to do. But Lyra was not like other queens. She remembered the stranger in the crystal chamber. She remembered his strange machines and strange clothes. She remembered that he had fallen from the sky in a ship that could fly between stars. If his people could build such things, maybe her people could too. Maybe they could learn. Maybe they could grow. Maybe they could become something more. She started small. She gathered the smartest people in her kingdom: healers, builders, thinkers. She gave them resources and freedom. She told them to study everything, to question everything, to learn everything. Knowledge is power, she told them. Some of her advisors thought she was crazy, a young queen wasting money on strange experiments instead of building armies. They whispered behind her back. They plotted to replace her with someone more traditional. Lyra discovered the plots. She dealt with the traitors. She showed everyone that she was not weak, that she was not foolish. She was determined. Years passed. Progress was slow but steady. Her people learned to make better tools, better medicines, better machines. They studied the stars and realized how small they were. They studied life and realized how precious it was. Every breakthrough, Lyra shared with the stranger in the crystal. "We made glass that bends light today," she would tell him. "Soon we will be able to see the stars up close. We found a new metal in the mountains," she would say another day. "It is strong but light. We think we can use it to build ships. One of our healers discovered why blood turns silver as we age," she would report. "We are one step closer to understanding bodies. One step closer to saving you." She never missed a day. Even when she was sick. Even when she was busy. Even when the weight of her crown felt too heavy to bear. She would sit beside the crystal chamber and talk to him like he was an old friend. Like he was the only one who truly understood her. Maybe he was. Suitors came from every corner of the land. Princes and lords and warriors. They wanted to marry the young queen. They wanted power and influence. They wanted the throne. Lyra refused them all. "I have no time for marriage," she would say. "I have work to do." Her advisors were frustrated. The bloodline needed to continue. What would happen if she died without an heir? What would happen to the kingdom? Lyra did not care. She was not living for herself anymore. She was living for a promise she made to a frozen stranger. When she was 30, her people launched their first ship into the sky. It did not go far, just beyond the clouds. But it proved that it was possible. It proved that they could leave their world. Lyra stood at the launch site and watched the ship rise. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. "Did you see that?" she whispered to the wind, imagining it would carry her words to the crystal chamber. "We are coming for you. We are coming to find your people." When she was 40, her ships reached the nearest moon. When she was 45, they found signs of other civilizations, radio signals, ancient ruins, proof that they were not alone. The universe was big and full of wonders. And her people were finally ready to explore it. They made contact with other species. They traded knowledge and technology. They learned about humans, about Earth, 2P, about a small planet far away where creatures with brown skin and small eyes looked up at the same stars. Lyra read everything she could find about humans. Their history, their wars, their art, their kindness, and their cruelty. She learned their languages. She studied their biology, and the more she learned, the more amazed she became. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the smartest. They were not the most advanced. But they had something that other species lacked. They cared about strangers. It was rare in the universe. Most species only protected their own families, their own clans, their own worlds. But humans would risk their lives for people they had never met, for children who were not their own, for aliens who were not even their species. It made no logical sense. It offered no survival advantage. It was irrational and foolish. And it was beautiful. Lyra finally understood why the stranger had saved her. It was not because she was a princess. It was not because he expected a reward. It was simply because he was human. And humans ran toward the arrows. When she was 55, her scientists made a breakthrough. They finally understood the nightbane poison. They finally knew how it worked. And they finally found a way to destroy it. The cure was not easy to make. It required rare materials from 3 different planets. It required technology that had only been invented 5 years ago. It required the combined knowledge of a dozen species. But they made it. Drop by, precious drop. They made it. The day the cure was ready, Lyra was in her throne room, hearing reports from her generals. A young scientist burst through the doors without permission. The guards tried to stop her, but she pushed past them. "My queen!" she shouted. Her face was wet with tears. "My queen! We have done it! The cure is ready!" The throne room went silent. Everyone knew what cure she meant. Everyone knew about the stranger in the crystal. He had become a legend, a symbol. The alien who gave his life for their queen. Lyra stood up from her throne. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was beating fast. 50 years. She had waited 50 years for this moment. "Prepare the chamber," she ordered. Her voice was steady, but barely. "Wake him up." She walked out of the throne room, leaving her advisors and generals behind. She walked through the palace halls, past guards who bowed and servants who stared. She walked to the royal medical sanctuary, where she had walked 10,000 times before. The crystal chamber stood where it had always stood. Blue, and cold, and beautiful. And inside, the stranger slept. Unchanged, unaged. Exactly as he had been the day they froze him. Lyra pressed her hand against the crystal one last time. "I told you I would come back," she whispered. "I told you I would save you." She took a deep breath and gave the order. "Wake him." The machines began to hum. The blue crystal started to glow brighter. Warm air replaced the cold mist inside the chamber. Slowly, very slowly, the ice began to melt. Lyra stood perfectly still, watching every change. Her heart was beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. 50 years of waiting. 50 years of hoping. It all came down to this moment. The healers surrounded the chamber with their instruments. They had studied human biology for decades. They had practiced this procedure 100 times. But nothing could prepare them for the real thing. "The ice is melting," the head healer reported. "His body temperature is rising. We will begin the cure injection in 30 seconds. Lyra nodded but said nothing. She could not trust her voice right now. The crystal walls became clear as the ice disappeared. She could see him now. Really see him. His brown skin. His closed eyes. The scars on his shoulders and back, where the arrows had been. He looked exactly the same as the day they froze him. Not a single day older. Time had stopped for him while the world changed around him. Injecting the cure now, the healers pressed a device against his arm. Blue liquid flowed into his veins. The cure they had spent 50 years creating. The knowledge of a dozen species. The hope of an entire civilization. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Do-hoon took a breath. It was small at first. Just a tiny movement of his chest. But it grew stronger. His heart started beating. His eyelids fluttered. Lyra stepped closer to the chamber. She wanted to be the first thing he saw when he woke up. She wanted him to know that she had kept her promise. "His vital signs are stabilizing," a healer announced. "The cure is working. The poison is breaking down." Do-hoon's fingers moved. His lips parted. He made a small sound, like someone waking from a deep sleep. "He is waking up," Lyra whispered. "He is actually waking up." She had imagined this moment so many times. In her dreams, in her prayers, in the long, lonely nights when she sat beside his chamber and talked to him about her day. But nothing could have prepared her for the real thing. The chamber opened with a soft hiss. Warm air rushed out. Do-hoon lay on the bed inside, his chest rising and falling with each breath. His eyes were still closed, but they were moving beneath his eyelids. The healers moved in to check his body. They scanned him with their instruments. They measured his heart, and his blood, and his brain. Everything is normal, the head healer said with amazement. He is healthy. He is going to be fine. Lyra felt tears running down her face. She had not cried in years. Queens were not supposed to cry. But she did not care anymore. She reached out and touched his hand. His skin was warm now, alive. Can you hear me? She asked softly. Please. Please open your eyes. Do-hoon's face moved, his brow wrinkled. He was trying to wake up, trying to find his way back from the long darkness. And then, finally, his eyes opened. They were dark brown, just as she remembered. Warm, and kind, and confused. He blinked several times, trying to focus. He saw lights above him, white walls around him, strange machines he did not recognize, and a woman standing beside him with silver skin and amber eyes and tears on her face. Where? His voice was rough and weak. Where am I? Lyra smiled through her tears. You are safe. You are in my palace. In the capital city of the Velan Empire. Do-hoon shook his head slowly. Nothing made sense. The last thing he remembered was pain, arrows, blood, the forest, the child, he said suddenly. He tried to sit up, but his body was too weak. There was a child. In the forest. Is she safe? Did they hurt her? Lyra's heart felt like it was breaking and healing at the same time. 50 years. He had been asleep for 50 years. And his first thought was still about her. About the child he saved. She is safe, Lyra said. She has been safe for a very long time. Because of you. She has been safe. Because of you. Do-hoon relaxed a little. The tension left his shoulders. Good. That is good. He closed his eyes for a moment, exhausted from even that small effort. Lyra looked at the healers. Leave us. Please. I need to speak with him alone. The healers bowed and left the room. They understood. This was not a medical matter anymore. This was personal. Lyra pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. She took Do-hoon's hand in both of hers and held it gently. What happened to me? Do-hoon asked. His eyes were still closed. How long have I been asleep? You were poisoned. The arrows that hit you were covered in a deadly poison. We did not know how to cure it. So we put you in stasis. We froze you in time, until we could find a way to save you. How long? Lyra hesitated. She did not want to tell him. She was afraid of how he would react. Please, he said. I need to know. 50 years. The room went silent. Do-hoon did not move. He did not speak. 50 years. Half a century. Everyone he knew was gone. His family. His friends. His entire world. He opened his eyes and looked at Lyra. Really looked at her. You saved me, he said slowly. We had to. You saved our princess. You took 7 arrows for her. We could not let you die. Do-hoon studied her face. Her silver skin. Her amber eyes. There was something familiar about her. Something he could not quite place. The child in the forest, he said carefully. The one I saved. What happened to her? Lyra smiled. It was a sad smile, full of memories and lost time. She grew up. She became queen. She spent her entire life trying to find a way to save the stranger who protected her. Do-hoon's eyes went wide. He looked at Lyra again, at her silver skin, her amber eyes, her face, older now but still holding traces of the frightened child he had held in his arms. You, he whispered. You are her. You are the child. Lyra nodded. Tears fell from her eyes again. I was 7 years old when you saved me. I am 57 now. I have been a queen for 42 years. I have built ships that fly to other worlds. I have made peace with a dozen alien species. I have changed my entire civilization." She squeezed his hand tighter. "And I did it all because of you. Because I made a promise to a dying stranger that I would wake him up, that I would bring him home." Do-hoon could not speak. He could not even move. This woman, this queen, she had spent 50 years saving him. She had changed the course of history. She had built an empire, for him. For a stranger, who had made one choice in a forest. "Why?" he finally asked. "I did not expect anything. I did not want anything. I could not let them hurt you. That is all." Lyra laughed softly. It was the same laugh she had when she was a child. Before the arrows. Before the war. Before the crown. "I know," she said. "That is exactly why I did it. That is exactly why you matter." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city spread out beneath them. A vast metropolis of white towers and floating lights. Ships flew through the air. People walked through streets made of crystal. "When I was young, I thought you were a god," Lyra said, looking out at her world. "A creature from the stars who came to save me. I built temples in your honor. I told stories about you to children." She turned back to him. "But then I learned about humans. I learned about Earth. I learned that you were not a god. You were just a person. A normal person who did something extraordinary." She walked back to his bedside. "My people have a philosophy now. We teach it to every child. We call it the way of the sun. Heart. It means that the true measure of a person is not what they do for themselves or their family. It is what they do for strangers. For people they will never see again. For children who are not their own." She touched his face gently. "You are the reason we believe this. You are the reason we became who we are." Do-hoon felt tears in his own eyes now. He did not deserve this. He was just a survey officer who crashed on the wrong planet. He was just a man who could not walk away from a crying child. "I am not a hero," he said quietly. "I was scared. I thought I was going to die." "You were scared," Lyra agreed. "And you stayed anyway. That is what makes you a hero. Not the absence of fear. The presence of courage. Despite it." She knelt beside his bed, the same way she had knelt 50 years ago in the forest, the same way she had knelt as a child, holding his hand while he bled. "I am Lyra, queen of the Velen Empire. I command 100 worlds. I lead 1 billion people. I have power that my ancestors could not have imagined." She bowed her head. "And I owe everything to you. Everything I am. Everything my people have become. It all started with one human who ran toward the arrows instead of away." Do-hoon reached out and lifted her chin. He made her look at him. "You do not owe me anything," he said firmly. "I made a choice. You made 1,000 choices after. The person who built this empire was you, not me." Lyra smiled through her tears. "That is exactly what a human would say." She stood up and walked to the door. She opened it and looked back at him. "Rest now. When you are strong enough, I want to show you something. I want to show you the world you created." "No." Do-hoon closed his eyes. He was tired. So tired. But for the first time in 50 years, he felt something he had not felt since before the crash. He felt hope. "Lyra," he said before she could leave. She stopped. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Lyra smiled. The same smile she had given him in the forest, when he wrapped his body around her and told her to close her eyes. "I made a promise," she said. "I always keep my promises." And she closed the door behind her. 3 days passed before Do-hoon was strong enough to walk. The healers came every few hours to check on him. They brought food and water and medicine. They ran tests and took measurements and asked him questions about how he felt. But mostly, they just stared at him. He was a legend come to life. The frozen guardian. The sun, heart stranger. Every child in the Empire knew his story. Every school taught about his sacrifice. And now, he was real. He was awake. He was eating breakfast in a palace bedroom. It was strange for them. It was strange for him, too. On the third morning, Lyra came to his room. She was dressed in simple clothes, not the royal gowns he had seen her wear before. She looked more relaxed. More like a person, and less like a queen. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Better," Do-hun said. "Much better. Your healers are amazing," Lyra smiled. "They have been preparing for this day for decades." Do-hun laughed. It felt good to laugh. He had not done it in 50 years. "Are you strong enough to walk?" Lyra asked. "I want to show you something." Do-hun nodded and stood up. His legs were still a little weak, but they held his weight. He followed Lyra out of the room and into the palace hallway. The palace was beautiful. White stone walls carved with delicate patterns. Windows that looked out over the city. Floors that seemed to glow with inner light. But what caught Do-hun's attention were the people. Every guard, every servant, every official they passed stopped and bowed deeply. Some of them had tears in their eyes. "Why are they looking at me like that?" Do-hun whispered. "You will see," Lyra said. They walked through long corridors and down wide stairs. They passed through gardens filled with flowers Do-hun had never seen before. They crossed bridges over streams of clear water. Finally, they reached a large set of doors. 2 guards stood on either side, tall and proud in silver armor. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked. Do-hun did not know what to say. He did not know what was behind those doors, but he trusted her. After everything she had done, how could he not? "Yes," he said. Lyra nodded to the guards. They opened the doors. Do-hun stepped through and stopped breathing. He was standing at the top of a huge room. Not a room. A hall. A hall so large it could hold 1,000 people. And it was full. Every seat was taken. Every corner was packed. Velen people filled the space. Soldiers in uniform, scientists in white coats, common citizens in everyday clothes, old people with white hair, young children holding their parents' hands. And they were all looking at him. The moment he appeared, a sound rose from the crowd. It was not cheering. It was not clapping. It was something else. Something deeper. They were kneeling. Every single one of them. Dropping to their knees at the same time. 1,000 heads, bowing low. Do-hun could not move. He could not speak. He could barely think. Lyra walked to the center of the raised platform at the front of the hall. She turned and faced him. "Park Do-hun," she said. Her voice was strong and clear, filling every corner of the vast space. 50 years ago, you fell from the sky onto our world. You were a stranger. You had no reason to care about us. You had no duty to protect us." She paused. "But when you saw a child being hunted, you did not run. You did not hide. You put your body between her and death. You took 7 poisoned arrows into your flesh. You held her in your arms and told her to close her eyes." Her voice trembled slightly. "You gave everything. And you expected nothing in return." She walked toward him slowly. "My people have spent 50 years trying to understand why. We have studied humans. We have learned your history. We have read your books. And watched your stories. And talked to your people." She stopped in front of him. "And we finally understand. Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. You are not the smartest, or the fastest, or the most advanced. But you have something that is rare. Something that is precious." She took his hand. "You care about strangers. You risk your lives for people you do not know. You run toward danger when everything tells you to run away. You have hearts that burn like suns." She turned to face the crowd, still holding his hand. "This man is the reason we are who we are today. Before him, we were a small, frightened people. fighting endless wars over ancient grudges. We thought the universe was cruel and cold and uncaring. Her voice grew stronger, but he showed us something different. He showed us that kindness exists, that courage exists, that people will die for strangers. He showed us that the universe is not empty. It is full of sun hearts waiting to be found. She released his hand and stepped back. Then, in front of everyone, the queen of the Velen Empire dropped to her knees and bowed her head. "I was the child you saved," she said. "I was 7 years old, and I was scared, and I was going to die. And then you appeared, a creature from another world, and you wrapped your arms around me and took the arrows into your own body." Her voice broke. "You told me to close my eyes. You told me it was going to be okay. And I believed you. I have believed you every day, for 50 years. She looked up at him. Her amber eyes were full of tears. "Welcome to the world you created, Park Do-hoon. Welcome to the empire of the Sun Hearts. Welcome home." The crowd began to rise. One by one, they stood up and started making noise. Clapping, cheering, crying. The sound grew and grew until it filled the entire hall, until it shook the walls, until it seemed to shake the whole planet. Do-hoon stood at the center of it all, completely overwhelmed. He did not know what to do. He did not know what to say. He had just been a man in a forest. He had just seen a child in danger. He had just done what felt right. He never imagined this. He never could have imagined this. Lyra stood up and took his hand again. She led him to the front of the platform, where everyone could see him clearly. "They want to hear from you," she said quietly. "They have been waiting 50 years for this moment." Do-hoon looked out at the crowd. Thousands of faces looking up at him. Thousands of people who had built their entire civilization around his memory. He took a deep breath. "I do not know what to say," he began. His voice was soft, but the room was so quiet that everyone could hear. "I am not a hero. I am not a god or a legend or whatever else you have called me. I am just a person." He paused. 50 years ago, I crashed on your planet by accident. I was lost and alone and scared. And then I heard a child scream. He looked at Lyra. "I did not think. I did not plan. I just ran, because that is what humans do. When we see someone in trouble, we run toward them, not away. We cannot help it. It is just who we are." He turned back to the crowd. "I am told that my actions inspired you, that you built this empire because of what I did. But I want you to know something. I did not save that child because she was a princess. I did not save her because I expected a reward. I did not even save her because I was brave." His voice grew stronger. "I saved her because I could not stand by and watch her die. Because the thought of doing nothing was worse than the thought of death. Because that is what it means to have a sun heart." He raised his voice. "You did not need me to teach you this. You already had sun hearts. Every single one of you. You just needed someone to remind you, to show you that it was okay to care, that it was okay to sacrifice, that it was okay to love strangers." He smiled. "I am proud of what you have become. Not because I created it, but because you did. You took one small act of kindness and turned it into something beautiful, something that will last for 1,000 years." He placed his hand over his heart. "I am Park Do-hoon. I am a human, and I am honored to be here. Thank you for not letting me die. Thank you for giving me a chance to see what my choices meant. Thank you for showing me that kindness is never wasted." He bowed his head. "Thank you for being the sun hearts I always knew you could be." The crowd erupted again. The sound was deafening. People were crying openly now. Guards who had stood still for decades were wiping their eyes. Lyra stood beside him, her hand on his arm. She was crying too, but she was smiling. "That was perfect," she said. "I meant every word." He replied, "I know." That is what makes it perfect. They stood there together, looking out at the crowd. The frozen guardian, and the queen, who saved him. The human, and the alien. The stranger, and the child. Reunited, after 50 years. Later that night, after the crowds had gone and the palace had grown quiet, Lyra took Do-hun to the top of the highest tower. They stood on a balcony, looking up at the stars. "We can take you home," Lyra said. "To Earth. Whenever you want. We have ships that can make the journey in weeks." Do-hun looked up at the sky. Earth was out there somewhere. His home. His people. His old life. But so much had changed. 50 years had passed. Everyone he knew was gone. Everything he remembered was different. "Maybe someday," he said. "But not yet." Lyra looked at him. "Why not?" Do-hun smiled. He reached out and took her hand. "Because I want to see the world I helped create. I want to meet the people you have become. I want to walk through your cities and visit your schools and learn your stories." He squeezed her hand gently. "I want to see what happens when someone runs toward the arrows instead of away." Lyra smiled. It was the same smile she had given him in the forest 50 years ago. Brave and bright and full of hope. "Then stay," she said. "Stay as long as you want. You will always have a home here, among the sun hearts, among your people." Do-hun looked up at the stars one more time. Then, he looked at the woman beside him. The child he saved. The queen she became. "Yes," he said. And together, they watched the stars turn in the endless sky, and they knew that some choices echo forever, that some kindnesses last longer than lifetimes, that the universe is big and cold and dark, but it is not empty. It is full of sun hearts, waiting to be found.